Hi. Um, I like to keep things organized and I like to stick to a timetable. I make a schedule for my day on the previous evening, and if something goes out of that schedule, I sort of go a little crazy. Do you do that? Does that mean that you have OCD? Now, a lot of us use the term OCD very common parlance type, and we feel that it is cool to say that I've got OCD, and we sort of misunderstand its meaning. I also used to do that, and I realized this when I was talking to a couple of my friends who understand mental health and who understand the disorders associated with it, and they actually told me that it's very different from being particular. So you can be disciplined and consistent and meticulous, but that does not mean that you've got OCD. And that is the most common myth that people have, and I don't think it's even a myth. I think it's just that people like saying that I have OCD, and my discussion with them led me to a very popular sitcom which a lot of us love, called Friends. And you know what I'm talking about, because in that we commonly tend to assume that the character of Monica has OCD. Does she or doesn't she was also a separate discussion altogether, and that was pretty funny. But OCD is medical. It's not something that you can be proud of. It's not something that people who genuinely suffer from it are proud of. It's debilitating. It is sort of disabling, and affects your work, your life, your relationships, your professional growth, your career, and how you basically live life. Of course, there are triggers and of course, there are signs, but a lot of the signs are pure myths. Washing hands very often, playing around with things, ensuring that this pen is supposed to be here and this notepad is supposed to be here, are just some of the common things we associate with OCD, even though they are just indicators and need not mean a full-blown obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, I read up a little bit, I did a little bit of research, I spoke to a couple of friends who understand mental health, and I'm by no means an expert on this. But I really wanted to understand, because I really don't like when people use disease-oriented terms in common parlance. For example, calling somebody a psycho, or saying that I'm in depression, because these are clinical problems and they deserve their own special treatment. So it'll be great if we don't use them in common parlance. But here's what I read up, and it's very brief and it's not too much. OCD is not just about keeping things in place. It's a lot to do with patterns. So people who suffer from OCD need to follow certain patterns. They are obsessed about a couple of numbers. They are obsessed about patterns. They are obsessed about always touching the doorknob twice. They are obsessed about rechecking things, rechecking time, rechecking whether they've locked the door. That actually brings them to a form of repetition, and that is something which goes on to become a pattern and goes on to define their state. Now, a common myth is that the person with OCD does not even know that they've got OCD. They know, and they know that it is wrong for them. They know that they should not be doing it, and they still get stuck into that warp. That is debilitating. When I know I should not be doing this, and I know that if I don't touch the doorknob twice, or I don't recheck my phone every 7 minutes exactly, nothing is going to happen. And that is where debilitating aspect of it comes in, where I'll go back to washing my hands, where I get lost in the activity and I know it is time and I'm missing out on things. I'm out on a date and I'm just washing my hands and washing my hands and washing my hands, and I'm missing out on life, but I still can't help myself. That is a disease, and it'll be great if we don't use it in common parlance and say that, oh, I've got OCD about this. You don't have OCD about this. Maybe you're meticulous about it. Maybe you like your timetable. Maybe you are obsessed about your timetable, but you're not compulsive about it. So that is something that is interesting about OCD, and it's something that we use a lot in defining people, and more so these days where people just use it off the cuff as if it's nothing. So that was a little bit about OCD and how it is very different from being meticulous, from a common person who is not an expert and who's just read up and spoken to a couple of people. But let's hope we don't use terminology like OCD or depression where they are not really apt. Take care, stay safe, and keep your mental health in place, and stay positive.